The San Diego Naval Base Conference Center hummed with pre-meeting energy as Commander Rachel Torres entered through the main doors. At 41, she moved with the controlled grace of someone who had learned to navigate hostile waters both literal and metaphorical. Her civilian attire, a modest navy blue blazer and slacks, gave no hint of her 19 years of naval service. The Joint Forces Maritime Security Symposium was a quarterly gathering, bringing together Navy and Marine Corps personnel to discuss coastal defense strategies. Rachel wasn't here as a speaker or official attendee. She'd volunteered to help with logistics, wanting to stay connected to the naval community during her medical leave. She made her way to the volunteer coordination desk, where a harried lieutenant was juggling multiple tasks. "Commander Torres, reporting for volunteer duty," she said quietly. The lieutenant looked up, confused by the title but seeing only civilian clothes. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Are you with the catering staff? They're setting up in the auxiliary room." "No, I'm here as a volunteer coordinator, Rachel Torres." The lieutenant scanned his list. "Oh, right. You're helping with registration. Table 3, please." Rachel took her position at the registration table, efficiently organizing materials and preparing name badges. For an hour, she worked quietly, checking in attendees and directing them to the appropriate rooms. It felt good to be useful again, even in this small capacity. The peaceful rhythm was broken by a booming voice. "Well, what do we have here? They've got civilians running registration now?" Rachel looked up to see a Marine Corps major standing before her table, Major Brad Hutchinson, according to his uniform. Broad-shouldered with the characteristic high and tight haircut and an expression of amused condescension. "Good morning, Major. Name for registration?" Rachel kept her tone professional. Hutchinson leaned on the table, invading her space. "That's what I like to see. Civilians who know how to address military personnel properly. Though I bet you had to read my rank off my uniform, didn't you?" "Your name, sir?" Rachel repeated, fingers poised over the keyboard. "Hutchinson. Major Brad Hutchinson, Marine Corps. Real military, not this contractor nonsense." He gestured dismissively at her civilian attire. "No offense, ma'am, but it bugs me when civilians play military dress-up at these events." Rachel found Hutchinson's name and checked him in, printing his badge with practiced efficiency. "You're in the main auditorium, sir. Keynote starts in 30 minutes. But Hutchinson wasn't done. He'd noticed the way she'd handled the registration system, the military bearing she couldn't quite hide, even in civilian clothes. "You seem pretty comfortable with our systems," he said, eyes narrowing. "Let me guess. Military spouse? Picked up the lingo from hubby?" "I served," Rachel said simply. "Oh, really?" Hutchinson's grin widened. "National Guard? Reserve? Did your 2 years and got out?" "Active duty Navy. 19 years. Hutchinson laughed, a harsh sound that drew attention from nearby tables. 19 years? And what? You got out as a petty officer? Maybe made chief if you were lucky?" Rachel straightened slightly. "Commander." The laughter grew louder. Hutchinson turned to address the growing audience of military personnel waiting to check in. "Hey, everyone. We've got ourselves a commander here. A commander working registration in civilian clothes." Several Marines and sailors in line chuckled uncomfortably. Others looked embarrassed by the display. "What's your name again, Commander?" Hutchinson asked, making air quotes around the rank. "Rachel Torres." Hutchinson pulled out his phone with theatrical flair. "Let's see here. Navy Personnel Database. Rachel Torres." He made a show of scrolling. "Funny. I don't see any Commander Torres in here. You sure you didn't mean Seaman Torres?" "My service record is restricted," Rachel said quietly, though she knew how it would sound. "Restricted!" Hutchinson slapped the table. "Oh, that's rich. Let me guess. You were in some super-secret squirrel unit? Navy SEALs? No, wait, you were probably running black ops for the CIA, right?" The crowd was growing. Rachel recognized the dynamic. Hutchinson was performing, establishing dominance through mockery. She'd seen it before. usually from insecure officers who needed to tear others down to build themselves up. I served in naval intelligence, she said evenly. Certain assignments remain classified. Naval intelligence, Hutchinson repeated mockingly. The chair force of the Navy, sitting behind computers, playing spy games while real warriors like us Marines do the actual fighting. A young Navy ensign in line spoke up tentatively. Sir, naval intelligence does crucial work. Did I ask for your opinion, Ensign? Hutchinson snapped. The young officer fell silent. Hutchinson turned back to Rachel. You know what I think? I think you're one of those stolen valor cases. Maybe you were a yeoman or something, pushed some papers for a few years, and now you inflate your service to feel important. Major, I need to continue checking people in, Rachel said, gesturing to the growing line. Not until we sort this out, Hutchinson insisted. See, I've been in the Corps for 15 years. I know every type of sailor there is. And you? He looked her up and down dismissively. You don't look like any commander I've ever served with. What does a commander look like? Rachel asked quietly. Not like you, Hutchinson said bluntly. Commanders have presence, authority. They sure as hell don't volunteer to work registration desks like some retired secretary. A female Marine captain in line shifted uncomfortably. Major Hutchinson, maybe we should... Captain, I'm handling this, Hutchinson cut her off. This is exactly the kind of thing we need to address. People claiming ranks they didn't earn, disrespecting those of us who actually served. He turned back to Rachel. Tell you what, Commander, why don't you tell us about your greatest naval achievement? What mighty battles did you command from your intelligence desk? Rachel's jaw tightened. She thought of the operations she'd planned, the threats she'd neutralized, the sailors and Marines who'd come home because of intelligence she'd developed. None of it could be discussed in this forum. I did my job, she said simply. Your job, Hutchinson scoffed. Let me tell you about doing the job. I've done 3 combat tours. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. I've lost Marines under my command. I've earned every ribbon on this uniform with blood and sweat. What have you earned besides a fantasy rank? The room had gone quiet except for Hutchinson's voice. Even the other registration volunteers had stopped working, watching the confrontation unfold. I'm not questioning your service, Major, Rachel said carefully. I'm asking for the same courtesy. Courtesy is earned, Hutchinson shot back. And you haven't earned anything except my suspicion. You know what? I'm going to report this to base security. We can't have people falsely claiming military ranks at official events. He pulled out his phone again, this time to call security. Yeah, this is Major Hutchinson at the conference center. We have a situation with someone claiming false military credentials. That's right. Says she's a Navy commander but can't prove it. Rachel stood quietly as Hutchinson made his call, maintaining her composure despite the humiliation burning in her chest. Around her, the other attendees watched with a mixture of fascination and discomfort. She caught the eye of the female Marine captain, who looked ashamed but said nothing. Security's on their way, Hutchinson announced to the room. This is what we do with stolen valor cases, people. We expose them. I haven't stolen anything, Rachel said firmly. No? Then where's your military ID? Where's your uniform? Where's any proof of this mysterious commander rank? Rachel's hand moved unconsciously to her chest, where her dog tags used to rest. She'd stopped wearing them after the operation that had gone wrong, the one that had left her with injuries that still woke her at night. I'm on medical leave, she said. I don't carry my military credentials to volunteer events. How convenient, Hutchinson sneered. Medical leave from your classified commander position in your restricted intelligence unit. You know what you are? You're a fantasist, a wannabe who probably washed out of basic and has been pretending ever since. 2 base security officers arrived, looking uncertain about the situation. Hutchinson immediately took charge. Officers, this woman is claiming to be a Navy commander but can't provide any verification. She's working registration at a military event under false pretenses. The senior security officer, a Navy petty officer first class, looked at Rachel apologetically. "Ma'am, can you provide any identification?" Rachel pulled out her driver's license. "I have this, and I'm on the volunteer list. You can verify that with Lieutenant Morrison at the coordination desk." "She claims her military records are classified," Hutchinson interjected. "Classic stolen valor excuse." The security officers looked uncomfortable. They clearly didn't want to escalate the situation, but Hutchinson's rank and insistence put them in a difficult position. "Ma'am," the senior officer said carefully, "maybe it would be best if you left. We can sort this out later." "She's not going anywhere until she admits she's a fraud," Hutchinson interrupted. "This is about integrity. Every real service member in this room deserves to know that we don't tolerate this kind of deception." Rachel looked around the room at the faces watching her. Some seemed sympathetic, others suspicious, most just uncomfortable. Not one person spoke in her defense. She understood. Hutchinson was a major in uniform. She was nobody in civilian clothes. "I'll go," she said quietly, beginning to gather her things. "That's right, run away," Hutchinson called after her. "And don't come back pretending to be something you're not. Commander Torres," he scoffed. "More like Commander Fake." As Rachel walked toward the exit, escorted by security, she heard Hutchinson addressing the crowd. "This is why we need to be vigilant, people. There are civilians out there who want to steal our honor, pretend they've made our sacrifices. It's pathetic and it's wrong." At the door, Rachel turned back to look at Hutchinson, surrounded by his audience, basking in his moment of righteous authority. "Major," she said, her voice carrying despite its quietness, "I hope you never find yourself in a position where your service is questioned simply because someone doesn't believe you look the part." "That won't happen," Hutchinson said loudly. "Because unlike you, I'm the real deal. I've got the scars to prove it." Rachel left the conference center, the San Diego sun bright and harsh after the fluorescent lights inside. She sat in her car in the parking lot, hands steady on the steering wheel despite the turmoil inside. 19 years of service, operations that had saved hundreds of lives, intelligence work that had prevented attacks on American forces. All of it dismissed by a Marine major who couldn't conceive that warriors came in different forms. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lieutenant Morrison. "Commander Torres, I'm so sorry about what happened. Major Hutchinson was completely out of line. Please come back." She deleted the message without responding. There was no going back, not after that public humiliation. Tomorrow, Hutchinson would spread the story. By week's end, she'd be known across the base as the woman who'd tried to steal valor. Rachel drove home to her small apartment in Coronado, the weight of her dismissed service heavier than any combat load she'd ever carried. On her wall hung a single photo, her intelligence unit in an undisclosed location, faces blurred for security. They'd called her Siren then, the intelligence officer who could lure enemy communications out of the darkness. Now she was just a fraud in Major Hutchinson's story, a civilian who dared to claim a rank she'd bled for. The bitter irony was that she'd volunteered today to feel useful again, to maintain some connection to the Navy that had been her life. Instead, she'd been reminded that without the uniform, without the visible trappings of rank, she was nothing to people like Hutchinson. Her secure phone, the one she'd kept despite her medical leave, buzzed with an encrypted message. She almost ignored it, then saw the authentication code. Someone from her old unit was reaching out. "Siren, heard about the incident at the symposium. Hutchinson's an ass. Some of us remember who you really are. Stand by." Rachel stared at the message, then deleted it according to protocol. Whatever her old unit was planning, she wanted no part of it. She'd had enough conflict for one day. But as she sat in her quiet apartment, surrounded by the invisible ghosts of her service, she wondered if this was what 19 years had earned her, the right to be mocked and dismissed by those who should have been her brothers and sisters in arms. The Anchor's Rest coffee shop in downtown Coronado was a Navy institution, its walls covered with ship photos and squadron patches. Rachel sat in a corner booth, laptop open, trying to focus on job applications. 3 days after the symposium incident, She was ready to leave the military world behind entirely. Commander Torres? She looked up to see a young naval officer in khakis. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, intelligence warfare officer, according to her insignia. Just Rachel now, she said wearily. I'm retired. Kim slid into the opposite seat, uninvited. Ma'am, I was at the symposium. What Major Hutchinson did was wrong. It's done, Lieutenant. Let it go. I can't. Kim leaned forward intently. Ma'am, I know who you are, or at least I know some of it. Operation Blackwater 2018, my unit provided comm support. We never knew who Siren was, but we knew she saved 3 SEAL teams that night. Rachel's expression didn't change. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course not, Kim said with a slight smile. But hypothetically, if someone had coordinated that operation, they would have prevented a major ambush. 43 American lives saved. Lieutenant, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but there's more, Kim interrupted. Major Hutchinson has been spreading his version of events all over base. He's turned you into his personal crusade against stolen valor. He even started a blog post about it. Rachel closed her laptop. Then let him. I'm not fighting this battle. Others are willing to fight it for you, Kim said. She pulled out her phone, showing Rachel a secure message board. The intelligence community is small, ma'am. Word spreads. There are a lot of people who remember Siren, even if they never knew your real name. Before Rachel could respond, her phone rang. The caller ID showed blocked, but she recognized the prefix. It was from the Pentagon. Torres, she answered from habit. Commander Torres, this is Admiral Janet Hayes, Director of Naval Intelligence. I understand there was an incident at the San Diego Symposium. Rachel's breath caught. Admiral Hayes was a legend in naval intelligence, though they'd never met directly. Admiral, I'm not calling for explanations, Commander. I'm calling because Major Hutchinson's accusations have reached my desk, and I don't appreciate Marine officers attacking my people, retired or not. I'm not your people anymore, Admiral. I'm medically retired. Bullshit. Hayes's tone was sharp. Once intel, always intel. You ran some of the most successful operations in recent naval history. Your work saved lives and prevented disasters. I'll be damned if some jarhead major gets to erase that because you don't fit his stereotype. Rachel glanced at Lieutenant Kim, who was trying not to look like she was eavesdropping. Admiral, I appreciate your concern, but I can't defend myself without violating classification. You know that. I do know that, which is why others will defend you. Commander, are you familiar with the Naval Intelligence Association's annual dinner? Yes, ma'am. It's next week. You'll be there. That's not a request. Admiral, you'll be there because you're receiving the Distinguished Service Award for your contributions to naval intelligence. The citation will be appropriately vague, but the message will be clear. Rachel was speechless. The Distinguished Service Award was the intelligence community's highest honor. I don't need awards, Admiral. This isn't about what you need. It's about what the community needs. Every junior intelligence officer needs to know that their service matters, even if it's classified. Every blowhard like Hutchinson needs to understand that there are warriors they can't see. Hayes paused. Besides, I've already informed the Chief of Naval Operations. He's particularly interested in attending given the circumstances. After Hayes hung up, Rachel sat in stunned silence. Lieutenant Kim was grinning. The DNI herself, Kim said. Ma'am, do you know what this means? It means I'm being dragged into a fight I didn't want, Rachel said. It means the community has your back, Kim corrected. Ma'am, can I ask you something? Why didn't you defend yourself at the symposium? You could have shut Hutchinson down. Rachel considered the question. Because defending